In this video, we're going to be talking about 5 things that you can improve on to make your real estate videos look more professional. Now that I'm pretty seasoned shooting these and have been running my real estate media business for years now, these are some pretty common mistakes I keep seeing other videographers make, especially in the beginning like I did when I first started. So let's jump into the video right now. So before jumping into the tips, a little bit of backstory if this is your first time here. I run a real estate media business here based in Houston, Texas, where we primarily produce high quality modern real estate videos, social media video content, lifestyle photography, basically any photo and video needs that realtors might need. And I can honestly say that especially in the beginning, I built my business kind of focusing on higher end video content when it came to property videos, marketing videos, talking head videos, things like that. So I can honestly say why the majority of our clients use us and new clients get referred to us are for our video content, especially our real estate videos. So let's get into number 1. Number 1, not properly exposing your footage. Now running my community for a little over a year now, which if you're interested, you can check that out in the description below. I can constantly see other real estate videographers' final videos, the things that they're producing, at different skill sets, different experience levels. This is probably the one thing that I see that could help take their videos to the next level. There's nothing worse than getting a completely blown out sky or a overexposed exterior shot that shouldn't have all of these blown out highlights, or even a shot of the interior where all the windows are just completely white squares with no detail in them. And also the opposite, which is underexposing your interior footage for some of those really low light scenes, and then having to crank up your exposure in editing, which is something you never want to do and results in a really noisy, muddy looking image. Now, obviously, if you're shooting an exterior shot where the sun is in your frame, yes, that's going to be blown out, and that's totally fine. It's honestly finding the right balance. Are there going to be situations where you just can't get everything properly exposed and you're going to have a couple of blown out spots? Of course, but if you're just more mindful about that and learn how to properly expose, whether you're shooting regular color or in log, your footage is just going to look so much better, so much more professional. And honestly, nothing more distracting than when I see a real estate video and a bunch of the shots are poorly exposed. It just honestly takes away from the viewing experience. My eyes immediately get drawn to the brightest parts of the image, which are going to be blown out parts. So properly exposing your footage is definitely my number 1 tip. And here's another tip if you're shooting interiors that have really blown out windows depending on the time of day, or if it's a really dark interior. If they have blinds, you can angle them a certain way to where you start getting a little bit of detail back in your shot versus having them just white squares. That's one thing I always do. Instead of having them perfectly straight, I'll level them a little bit, and now I'm going to start getting a little bit more detail back. And that honestly, that little bit looks a lot better than just blown out white squares. And then another tip is to shoot at the right time of the day. A lot of our video shoots that I try and schedule are either first thing in the morning, or if it's a really high-end property, we'll try and do it at sunset. Because the sun's lower in the horizon, everything is going to look really nice. Golden hour, everything is the correct exposure. You're going to see a lot more dynamic range in the windows versus when the sun is right above the property. And then my third tip is if you're shooting log, is to learn how to properly shoot it. What you should be doing is honestly practicing before you go on that shoot, on that paid gig. One thing that I always do whenever I'm trying out something new, whether it's new equipment, a new editing technique, a new shooting technique, is I just shoot my own house. I'll be outside. I can't remember how many times I've been asked by my neighbors, hey, is this the time you're finally listing your house? Because they see me out front shooting it, and it's like, nope, just testing some gear. But I constantly do that all the time, because that way when I get to that next paid gig, there's going to be no surprises. I'm going to be familiar with whatever new thing I'm learning or trying to shoot. So doing that, learning how to properly expose your log footage will honestly avoid any headaches in editing, and your footage and your final video will look so much better overall. Okay, moving on to the second thing that you want to avoid. So now you upgraded to that modern camera that shoots really nice 10-bit log, and now you've practiced and you know how to properly expose it. Now once we get into the editing room, you don't know how to color correct that or how to properly grade it. And one thing that you're probably gonna do, kind of like every photographer that first starts out where they over edit their photos, you're probably going to over correct or over color grade your log footage. And especially when it comes to real estate, you want it to look really natural. Whenever you're looking at the outside of the property or the inside of the property with your very own eyes, that's honestly how it should look on camera. You want to get it as close to that as possible. The benefits, of course, of shooting log is the better dynamic range, range, the 10-bit color flexibility to adjust your image a little bit in post, but honestly, you want it to look really natural, not over-processed. This is not a short film, a teal and orange look that you want to give it, nothing like that. The simplest formula for correcting log footage, especially for real estate, is to just get your camera manufacturer's LUT. So for example, on Canon cameras, on the Canon website, you can download their Rec 709 conversion LUT, use that, and then add some basic adjustments like exposure, contrast, white balance. That's pretty much it. Maybe mess with the highlights and shadows a little bit to fine tune it, but you honestly don't have to do much more than that. It's gonna look like a really nice natural image, especially if you exposed it properly, like I mentioned before. And that's honestly till this day how we approach a lot of our properties. And if you're trying to step up to a more professional grade LUT that I can honestly 100% stand behind, I promise I'm not just trying to sell these. I've mentioned these in so many videos because the video you're watching right now is corrected with these. All of our high-end videos are done with these, and those are phantom LUTs. The really cool thing about these LUTs is that they're camera specific. For example, if you shoot on Canon like I do, they have Canon conversion LUTs. If you shoot Sony, they have Sony specific ones. Red, Black Magic. So it's not just a very generalized LUT, it's made specific to your camera's color science, and they're all modeled to get that industry standard, airy cinema camera iconic look, which looks really natural, high dynamic range. So I've been using these for years now. I've never come across any other LUT pack to this day that is just more versatile and looks as good as these, because as cameras advance, these LUTs still look great. And so I don't think I'm going to change and just going to keep using those. So if you're interested, I do have those linked down below. If you'd like to support me in the channel, I do get a little bit of a kickback, but I only really want to share things I honestly use and support, and phantom LUTs, been using those for years. All right, moving on to the next mistake that I see other videographers make, and that is their gimbal movements are way too fast, especially if you're coming from another industry like, if you shoot fitness videos or sports, you might be used to using those super fast gimbal movements, but it does not translate good to real estate. You want real estate to be slow and smooth and no jitters and just no jarring movements, because the whole point of the video is to showcase the home. And obviously there's different versions of real estate videos. Like here in my business, we produce high-end, modern, cinematic listing videos, but then also really more fast-paced social media videos. But the approach is still the same. They're shot pretty much the same as well. It's really slow and smooth movements. I keep my movements really simple, whether it's just going forward and backwards, left to right, or my favorite, which is just walking really slow and revealing a room, kind of like a small panning movement and walking forward. Taking a little bit of time to get familiar with your gimbal, dial in the right smooth and slow settings will probably leave you less frustrated in editing when you're looking at that super fast footage that you don't know how to slow down or fix. And here's another tip. If your camera can shoot 60 frames per second full frame to where it's not cropping into the image, use that whenever you're shooting most of your wide shots, because now you can have more flexibility whether you're working on a 24 or a 30 frames per second timeline. You can slow that footage down, get it to the speed that you want, along with walking slow and smooth, doing heel toe to make sure that you're not getting that up and down movement, because you can't really fix that in post, will give you the best resulting footage in editing, where you can now make it faster, slow it down, whatever it is. So definitely avoid walking fast, doing really fast-paced jarring movements, keep them slow and simple, because that way in editing those shots will be a lot more versatile, because again, you can slow it down, you can reverse clips, you just have a lot more flexibility in editing and on the final result if it's shot properly. The next biggest mistake I see is that there's no structure to the video whatsoever. Whether this is a longer cinematic paced walkthrough video or a fast-paced social media video, you're still gonna have the same relative timeline for it, the same flow. And I see a lot of people, especially when they first start out, just kind of mixing shots together, and there's no flow to it, doesn't make sense. It leaves you confused on like the flow of the property or what it even is supposed to look like. And honestly, the easiest formula is to just keep it very linear. You want to start off with, any establishing drone shots if you're doing any drone, then shots of the exterior, whether it's the wide exterior shot, then a detail shot of it. Then you want to jump into the interior of the home, whether that's going right through the entryway or jumping right into the living room. And then what we do is we showcase all the main feature areas, all the common areas of the home, like the living, the kitchen, the primary, any special rooms it has, things like that. And if we're showcasing the secondaries, like the secondary bedrooms or baths, we'll leave those last, and then finally finish off with the exterior, maybe an exterior drone shot after that, and that's it. So it's very linear. It's from start to finish. It makes sense. So if you structure your edit that way, it'll always make sense. Doesn't matter if it's a more traditional real estate video or a fast-paced social media video. Instead of just putting random shots together where maybe it's really fast and it looks cool, but it's like, what's the layout of the home? I don't understand. Or maybe I don't get enough screen time to look at this, because then it goes into the next part or this. So honestly, that'll come with experience. And then once you keep doing more of these, you'll develop your own shooting style, which you'll probably shoot to the way you edit, whether it's you or an editor that you're working with. But just think about it whenever you're even out shooting. How do you want to showcase the flow of it? And that way it'll just make a lot more sense to the viewer. My last tip is probably a little bit controversial, so I'll just straight up say it's more of a personal taste, but it is a mistake I feel like still a lot of videographers make in the beginning, especially coming into real estate, and that's overusing speed ramps and transitions. You know, even if that's not your style or you're totally about that, I think there's a limit, and you can definitely, like anything, overdo it. And I see it overly done in this field to where it just takes away from it. I think that stuff is cool. I'm not knocking that stuff whatsoever, because we utilize speed ramps and transitions in our videos too, but it's just done tastefully. It's done with meaning, not just let me put some sort of transition within every clip, because then what's going to happen is it loses its purpose. If every single cut in the video has some sort of whip transition or some sort of zoom transition, it becomes complacent, overdone, honestly annoying, because you're trying to focus on whatever you're looking at in the shot, then it just zooms into the next thing. It just loses its meaning and it becomes regular, not a special transition. For example, for us, we kind of utilize it whenever we're jumping from the exterior front shot to the interior, because again, that makes sense. It's, you know, we're jumping in from the outside into the inside of the home. That's a great spot to add a transition in, and it makes sense. Or if we're doing a specific day to night transition, again, it makes sense. We're showcasing the day shot of it, then all of a sudden it transitions into the night shot. Those have a purpose behind it. Basically, just not taking the approach where instead of having a cut there, I'm just gonna put a transition because I feel like it needs it. So again, I'm not knocking that stuff. We do it. It's definitely really cool when it's done properly and it's done with purpose, like I'm trying to explain. So just don't feel like you have to utilize it in every single cut of your video. I definitely see that a lot from beginners. It just honestly potentially ruins the video, gets really distracting, and just doesn't come across as professional. I wanted to jump into a couple of bonus tips that can maybe help you as well. And that is to make your videos different from the competition around you. That's one of the things, like I said, I was really inspired by cinematic videos, especially since no one was really doing that in the real estate space. So then I practiced it and perfected it and kind of built my business off of that. And honestly, that's what made us stand out, because no one was really doing that. So then I landed my first client, and then that client shared it. Then someone else saw that on social media and they're like, hey, who did that really cool video? And then referred me to that agent, and so on. Because even to this day, 4 to 5 years later, referrals are still our number one source of new clients. We'll have a client share the video, or we post it on our social networks, and then we'll get a referral from that. So that's still the best way to get business, is just producing the best work that you can, and you'll get referrals from it. I promise you that. So there you have it. Those are the top 5 mistakes that I think you should avoid and work on, especially if you're just starting out as a real estate videographer. Honestly, it's super cool in this day and age that video has such a demand, because when I first started, video it's still more of a luxury, but it definitely was then. It's like real estate photos were a necessity, and no one was really doing many real estate videos, 5-6 years ago, because it was just point of view walkthrough videos on much older iPhones that didn't have the best cameras. Now you could shoot a great real estate video with an iPhone camera if you know what you're doing. So then when I came into the market and started doing these higher end videos, definitely made a difference and helped me build my business off of that. So I can guarantee if you can work on these 5 things and improve on them, your videos will automatically start looking a lot more professional, and you'll definitely get more client referrals from them. So that's it for this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed, comment down your thoughts, subscribe if you haven't already. I would love for you guys to be part of the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.